Hello, Texas 4-H. My name is Molly Keck, and I am with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the Department of Entomology. I am also one of the authors on the 4-H Entomology Guidelines. These videos were developed to help you better understand what you need to know for the Entomology Identification Contest. Remember, for each specimen, you need to know their common name, what order they're found in, what their life cycle is, what type of mouthparts they have, their host or location or where they are found, and their significance. Are they a pest, beneficial, inconsequential, or variable? This study video is covering the order Hemiptera and all of the specimens that seniors need to know. So hemipterans are all of the true bugs. Their host is very broad. It's going to depend on the species or specimen that we're looking at. They are considered pests, beneficial, and in some situations inconsequential. They have a gradual or parametabolous life cycle, and they have piercing and sucking or haustellate mouthparts. So this entire order have those piercing and sucking haustellate mouthparts. The order Hemiptera can be further divided into 3 suborders, and if you can kind of organize these suborders, it will help you to identify the specimens a little better. It's a good idea for intermediates and seniors to know the 3 different types of suborders, especially if you're going to be competing at the state level. You will be required to differentiate between the suborder Heteroptera, Echinoranca, and Sternorhyncha. Starting out with that suborder Heteroptera, these are all the true bugs, and their host is going to, again, depend on the species. They're pests and beneficial. All have gradual parametabolous life cycle, piercing and sucking mouthparts because they're within that order Hemiptera. We're just subdividing them out. So this suborder Heteroptera are all of the true bugs, and the way that their wings lay over their back is how you can easily identify that this is in the order Heteroptera. Imagine that the wings are attached on the shoulders where these blue dots are, which they are, and when they lay those wings across the back, they'll fold flat against the back. And when they do that, it forms a triangle. So when you see a triangle on an insect, you're looking at a hemipteran in the suborder Heteropteran, all of the true bugs. The wider the back, like this one, the bigger the triangle. The thinner, more narrow the back, the smaller the triangle may appear. The other thing that you might notice, so these have Hemiptera, which is half of their wing is hard. So hetero means different, and ptera means wing. Half of their wing is hard, and the other half is membranous. And so when that membranous part of the wing overlaps, it has a different texture or look to it. Hemiptera is a good term that I would know that is only found in the order Hemiptera, suborder Heteroptera. Backswimmers are a species of beneficial predators, or a group of beneficial predators that swim upside down. They have multiple adaptations to their body that make them good at swimming and meant for living in the water. One is that their hind legs are modified to be like long oars to help them scoot through the water. Their body is shaped like a boat so that it can fly through the water a little faster. And they're called a back swimmer because they swim upside down. So the top part of their body is lighter in color and the bottom is dark, which is oftentimes opposite of a lot of insects. And if they're swimming upside down and their belly is showing and they're darker on the bottom, this means that when a bird or a predator is looking down into the water, it's going to blend in with the dark of the water. By swimming upside down with the back being visible, if you're a fish or something looking up, it's going to blend more into the sky. So that two-tone is an adaptation in order to be avoided by predators. Bed bugs are a pest that are found on humans. They utilize humans as their hosts. They are blood-feeding parasites. Tend to feed on you at night when you're still, but they will adjust when they feed based off of when you are most still. They can be found when they're not feeding on you on bedding, in seams, folds, fabrics, things like that. As a parasite, they thankfully do not transmit diseases, but we can very easily move them. They move between apartments, between the walls of apartments, but they can also get on your bags, on books, on other objects, and we can transport them from one location to the next. For this reason, they are considered to be notorious hitchhikers. Giant water bugs are fairly large insects that can be up to 3 inches in length, but there are some species that are much smaller. They're predatory, and so they're beneficial. The host of where they are found is water or pond, and they tend to be attracted to light, so they're sometimes called electric light bugs. They have modified legs also. Their body is modified to move through the water easily. Their hind legs and mid legs are kind of flattened and wide like an oar with a lot of surface area with those little hairs, and then their front legs are raptorial so that they can reach out and grab prey. So they have both natatorial and raptorial modifications to their legs. Green stink bugs are your typical green stink bug looking insect. These are considered pests. Their host is a variety of different plants. For the contest, plants is adequate, but within that plant range, this can include weeds, anything in your garden, field crops, so they can be an agricultural pest, and they can also be found on flowers, roadside flowers, and wildflowers. Harlequin bugs are another pest insect. They are a red to orange color with black marking. They look like a harlequin, which is kind of like a jokester. They are a type of stink bug, so they smell when you touch them or irritate them or smash them. And their host are cole crops, C-O-L-E crops. These are lettuces, cauliflower, broccoli. Some spinaches are considered cole crops. Some kales are considered cole crops. So these are a pest insect feeding on those vegetable cole crops. The squash bug is another pest. One trick is that if a plant is in its common name, there's a very good chance that it's going to be a pest insect. And there's also a pretty good chance that the name of the plant is one of their hosts. So in this case, that is true. These are pests of squash and other relatives such as pumpkins and other cucurbits. I would be very careful as an intermediate or senior to be sure to be able to differentiate the difference between squash bugs and kissing bugs, because the squash bug looks most similar, I would say, to a kissing bug. Toad bugs are a small insect that's only about 1/2 inch long. It's kind of warty and bumpy. It looks to be the color of a toad. It has eyes like a toad. It can even hop like a toad. So it kind of mimics a toad, which is what gives it its name. It is considered beneficial. You can see from the front legs that it does have raptorial legs. They are not technically an aquatic insect or an aquatic hemipteran because they're not found in the water. They're found along the rocky shores of lakes or ponds. So they're found along shorelines. Chinch bugs are another small insect that is considered a pest. They are a host of grasses, so they're going to be a pest in your lawn, places like that. They really thrive when it's very, very hot. And so a lot of times at the end of the summer, when your turf is already stressed out, these guys can come in and really make the turf look pretty bad. They suck on the juices of the plant. As it matures, they're kind of orangey, reddish in color with a white stripe down the back. As adults, they're black and white, kind of a pearly colored white on the wings. The legs can appear to be reddish in color sometimes. There's not a whole lot that's very characteristic about these guys, so it's just important to kind of memorize and how they look, and that these guys are chinch bugs, but you'll find that there's many other insects in the Hemiptera group that look pretty similar to them. Cotton flea hoppers, very small greenish colored, almost clear or white colored insect. They're cotton flea hoppers, and so cotton is their host, and they are a pest. If a plant name is in their common name, then there's a good chance that they're a pest of what that is. But they use their piercing and sucking mouth parts to feed on the cotton and cause major problems in cotton systems. Leaf-footed bugs are a brownish insect that is considered a pest. They have flattened hind legs that look like a leaf, and so that's how they get their common name. They have a variety of different hosts, many different plants and weeds. For the contest, consider plants or weeds the host, but you might find them specifically on tomatoes, southern peas, or soybeans. The specimen for the contest, the picture that you were given, is the species that is dark brown and has a white line across its back. But there are other species, all of them have that flattened hind leg though. Water striders are another aquatic hemipteran, and you notice that so far all of the aquatic hemipterans tend to be beneficial because they tend to be some sort of a predator. Their host is ponds. They are found in running streams where they are feeding on other things, and they tend to not necessarily go underneath the water, but be on top of the water. They have long, skinny legs that they stretch out, and so this kind of expands their mass and their weight is not all in one little part where they can fall through the surface of the water. So this allows them to be less dense than the water and to be able to walk on top of the water. Here's your kissing bugs. They do look similar to squash bugs with the markings along the abdomen, the kind of orange or red checkered pattern. Kissing bugs, however, tend to be a tad larger. Their shoulders are thinner. Their head is much thinner. Another common name for them is a cone nose bug. So they have this long, skinny cone-shaped head, which is really what should help you differentiate them from the squash bugs. This is a pest. They feed on blood. They feed on the blood of basically any animals. These can be reptiles, they can be amphibians, they can be birds, they can be mammals, including humans and other dogs or other types of mammals' pets. So animals as a whole is going to be their host. These tend to feed at night, come out and are nocturnal and feed at night, attracted to lights, and hide during the day under piles of debris, under shingles, under loose siding, underneath bark, under piles of rocks or piles of wood. So they're hiding during the day and they come out to feed at night. They are in the group of assassin bugs, but they're different from all the other assassin bugs because they have that black and orange or red pattern along the exposed part of the abdomen, and their wings kind of sit inside with the abdomen kind of like lifted up, raised up on the edges. Ambush bugs are another beneficial predator. A lot of times their common name will give you a bit of a clue as to what they do, and so these guys like to ambush their prey. They're kind of an interesting looking insect. They have very raptorial, thick front legs, which you can kind of see in that right-hand picture. They lie in wait for their prey, so they ambush them. They don't actively go out hunting for them. They wait where the prey is coming to them, and then they reach out and grab them with those grasping raptorial front legs. The host for them are flowers, where they're often found waiting on that prey. Here are a couple of examples of assassin bugs. So remember, don't get these confused for the kissing bug. They tend to be thin. They have a narrow shoulder, so a small triangle on their back where the wings fold over, and they have very thin heads. These are predators, so they've got to be able to seek out their prey, so they need a neck to be able to look around. The host for the contest for these are field crops, but they're really found anywhere there are other insects because that's what they're feeding on. Their mouth part is more beak-like. It's very strong, like you see in that left-hand picture. It's going to stab at whatever its prey is and then suck the juices from the body of that prey. They can be brightly colored like these two are, or they can be very plain, be gray, be brownish. I don't think there's any that are really very green, but they range. They all just have the same look where they have that very thin, narrow head that appears to have a neck so they can seek out their prey. And then big-eyed bugs, we're still in this group Heteroptera where they all have this triangle, and you can really see the triangle on this guy. It's a black triangle where those wings have folded over the back. These big-eyed bugs have very large eyes. They're very small. They're a beneficial predator found in field crops. Very important predator for cotton and field crops. They have a round-ish body. I can see this being confused for a chinch bug. So make sure that you maybe make a star by chinch bug and big-eyed bug so that you can compare them and not get them confused. And then our burrower bug is another type of pest. They're a pest sometimes. A lot of people will see these as you're digging in your gardens, digging in the soil, watering. They'll kind of run up the side of your foundation. But in pests and grasses, they can, especially peanuts, peanuts, they can be a big pest because they burrow into the ground, they suck on the roots of the peanuts, they deform the peanuts, and they make them taste bad. They can also sometimes do this to grasses, although they're not technically really considered a pest in your turf. These are kind of cockroach looking, but they're much smaller than a cockroach. They're only going to be about probably a quarter of an inch to a half of an inch long. You can see the triangle in this guy. They also have that membranous tip to their wings, and then their legs are very pokey and have lots of little spines on them, which is very similar to cockroaches. False chinch bugs are a pest found in sorghum. They do have the potential to damage lawns and can be confused for a chinch bug, which is how they get their name. The big difference is that the chinch bug is more of a metallic, pearly white, and these are, and very kind of darker black, whereas these are much more dull. Their heads are a little bit wider. They also have larger eyes. So I would say big-eyed bug, chinch bug, false chinch bug, those three probably could be easily confused for one another. So be sure to study them to know the difference. And then our box elder bugs are a red or orange and black insect. Their host is a box elder tree. These are considered a pest because they can be a nuisance when they enter the home in the winter months and they congregate. And so most people don't like insects in their house. Outside, they're really not causing a lot of damage to the box elder trees or other plants, but for the reason that they enter homes during the winter months, they can be considered a pest. Milkweed bugs are beneficial. They're considered beneficial for a number of reasons. Probably one of the main reasons is that they're used in labs for research because they're very easy to rear. Milkweed bugs, I think, look very similar, at least in color, to that box elder bug, but they just have a lot more red on them, whereas the box elder bug is more outlined in red. It's a red outline as opposed to red stripes or thick red bands like these guys have. The other reason why they might be considered beneficial, especially if you're a farmer, is that they will be found feeding on milkweed, which is a weed. Now, most of us think of milkweed as the food source for monarchs, but if you're a farmer, that's a weed that you really don't want in your crops. Minute pirate bug is a beneficial insect that also kind of looks like a chinch bug, just has maybe a little bit more narrow of a head. Their hosts are other insects where they're feeding on live moving insects of all life cycles. They also will feed on eggs, and they're very common in row crop situations, maybe a little bit more so than in your garden, common in cotton and field crops. But the host for these or the location is going to be insects. Tarnished plant bugs are also sometimes considered a pest. These are kind of a coppery brown and yellow colored. So they're not really white and black. They're a little bit more colorful, more yellow to them. They're found on plants and on weeds, and you can often find them feeding on cotton and alfalfa. But the host is plants and weeds. Kind of oval shaped, flat, very wide head, wide shoulders, and only about a quarter of an inch long. Water boatmen are another aquatic beneficial insect. The host for these is going to be ponds. They're feeding on algae. So they're not really predatory, but they're feeding on plant material that maybe you don't want inside that water. They oftentimes can be confused for back swimmers. They look a lot like back swimmers, but back swimmers swim upside down. These guys do not. They're much smaller. They won't bite because they have mouth parts more adapted to feed on plant material in the water like algae. They're not predatory, and so they don't have the shorter mouth parts to be able to bite, whereas the back swimmer has a shorter mouth part that can penetrate your skin. And the other big difference is they kind of have a pattern or a striping on their backside, whereas the back swimmer is just more pale and more of a solid color. And the final senior heteropteran is the water scorpion. So these are a beneficial aquatic insect. They're found by streams, slow-moving waters. They do have wings, but they seldom fly. They are going to be, again, predatory, feeding on those other insects that are around the water, maybe even mosquito larvae. And so this is our final Heteropteran. Be sure to check out more videos of the Steineranka and Echinoranka suborders of Hemiptera to be familiar with all of the Hemiptera species. For more information, study guide materials, and more, please visit the Texas A&M Entomology Department Extension website. Visit entomology.tamu.edu/extension. Scroll down and click on 4-H and Youth Programs.